With that being said, what in the solar system is going on? Not just in the world. Yeah, actually, so many people have been asking me this question over the past week or week and a half because our world is on fire. The world is on fire. And it is, and actually for the past, many months, but it's really gotten hot this past week and a half or so with the revolution and the protests that are happening. So it is absolutely reflected in the astrology, in the. I mean, just from a. Let me back up. First off, I haven't because of what's been going on. I haven't joined the circle in like a week, and yesterday was the first time I joined. And I'm so grateful. I literally was like, oh, I feel like a normal person again because I drank cacao and joined in ceremony. I was, because of we've had a curfew here in Richmond, and I was helping a friend out with evening programs. And because of that, there was crazy things happening where, people were out driving and without being able to explain yourself, police officers would like rip people out of their cars or break their windows or slash their tires or whatever, and just throw you in jail for breaking curfew without even giving a chance for explaining like you're at work or you're going to and from something. So I wasn't able to join for the past week for that and various other reasons. So first off, I'm super happy and grateful to be back in some kind of flow where I can join Cacao Circle in the morning.
We missed you very much.
I missed y'all so much. I was really like yesterday. I was like, oh, I feel like a normal person again. Anyways, but that being said, 2020 is a year that astrologers have been talking about for decades. Seriously, for decades, as a time of a huge shift, a huge transformation is going to be happening in society. Um, and I know of one person actually that predicted a pandemic, but really most people weren't thinking it was going to be a pandemic. But there's been this huge talk about the breakdown of structure of society and the financial system and all this kind of stuff for years, for many, many, many years. And so this is from an astrological standpoint. This is completely flowing. It's represented in the heavens, so to speak. Let me just also introduce myself for anybody that's never met me before. My name is Nick Lasky. I am here in Richmond, Virginia. Hey, taking the monuments down here. This is a really interesting place to be right now. But I'm a professional astrologer and I practice Western astrology amongst other things. And I've been leading cacao ceremonies for a little over a year now. Took the immersive with flow, and I'm super excited, in love with cacao and Cacao Lab and everybody here. So let me just start with that.
In
But
love with you, Nick.
yes, so let's dive into astrology. So you know what? Actually, this is really gonna help me in how the vocabulary and the language that I use. Give me like a wave of your hand if you know a little bit about astrology. Like you know a little bit. Let me see some hand waves. Okay, I see a lot. Okay, most people know a little bit about astrology. Now wave your hand if you feel like you're on a more intermediate kind of level. You know, like a good amount. You're not a professional, but you know a good amount. Okay, we see Fatima's like. Okay, we're back. Okay, gotcha. Cool. Okay, so we got some people. Is anybody in here an astrologer? Not that. Rebecca, did you raise your hand? Etsy, Etsy.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of, sort of. I got it.
I feel like it's such a big field, and I have been studying for about 10 years, but like on and off. So I don't claim to be like a full on astrologer yet.
I got it. You understand astrology. Okay.
She knows what's up.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So there are many things. There's about 5 or 6. Florencia just asked me to do this yesterday, so I was like, okay, let me just try and get a little bit organized here because there's so many different things to talk about, um, and I want to do justice to everything. So first off, let's talk about the most pressing kind of energy right now, which is the lunar eclipse that we just had. Everybody knows that yesterday I posted about it in the Facebook circle at 3:12 p.m. Eastern Time. We had a lunar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius. Um, is anybody in here a Sagittarius? Wave your hand like this if you're a Sagittarius. Amber, Elisa, Emily, Sagittarius. Ooh, Virtual Shala over there is a Roxy's a Sagittarius. And Laura's got the rising in Sag. Okay, cool. So, um, so a lunar eclipse is a full moon, right? If you look out in the night sky, you see the full moon. A lunar eclipse is, you can think about it like a super duper full moon. All right, and I don't want to get too technical today because there's going to be so many different things, and if I get technical about each thing, it's gonna like we're gonna be fried by the end of this. Um, but but you can think of a lunar eclipse as an extra super powerful full moon. And what is the full moon about? It's the illumination of a luminary, of a light body. So it's the illumination of our emotional body. It brings total awareness, total um, in a sense clarity, or clear vision to something that's been going on in the emotional body, right? And the energy that builds up before the full moon is really intense emotions, right? It's heightened emotional energy. So an eclipse, whether it's a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse, is one body, whether it is the moon or it's the earth, moving in front of either the sun or the moon, right? So in that, you can think of eclipses also like mini deaths, right? So in a moment, I'm going to talk about the June 21st solar eclipse that's coming up. And a solar eclipse is literally when the moon moves in front of the sun and blocks out its light. So it's like literally the light goes out for a moment and it comes back on. It's a death of the light and a rebirth of the light. Similar kind of manifestation for a lunar eclipse. But what we need to know about eclipses, both lunar and solar, is they are incredibly powerful times for the collective that are like pivot points. In this year, you can think of this year as like an eclipse. 2020 is a whole year of eclipse. But specifically, this period that we're in, there is profound opportunity for going in new directions. And one of the ways that I really like to think about it is the crossroads, right? Humanity is at the crossroads, and eclipses really like focalize the energy into a crossroads. And I like to think about it like a flowing river. You can also think about like a Y crossroads. You're coming up on a road and it goes this way or it goes this way. We can choose right now collectively as a humanity, as a country, as individuals. Are we taking this path? Are we taking this path? Right? Another way of thinking about it is there's like, did anybody ever go to any water parks? When you're a kid, like in North Carolina, there's Wet and Wild Emerald Point. That was my favorite thing, is going to this little water park and jump down the Daredevil drop and stuff like that. Anyways, but you gotta choose. You gotta choose. Am I gonna go right on this ride, this water park? Am I gonna jump in the lazy river right now? A lot of times the lazy river was, that was a mom's choice. But anyways, the thing is, once you jump in the slide, once you jump in the river, once you take that road, it is hard. It becomes very increasingly hard every day that goes on to change course, right? Once you're started going down the slide, you can't really just like, oh, wait, I don't want to do this and come back up the slide. I mean, you can, but that's like really hard. So that is eclipses. It presents us with a crossroads in our personal lives and collectively into, we're going to go this direction, we're going to go this direction. And personally, I believe with the world, and especially our country right now, it's not set. We haven't decided. We are in the midst of that right now. So This particular lunar eclipse happens to be, as I posted in the Facebook group. So not all eclipses are created the same. The sign that the moon is going to be very significant. The moon is in Sagittarius right now. Shout out to all the Sagittarian suns and Sagittarian moon people. Woo woo. So the archetype of Sagittarius, at its core essence, one of the things that it's about is freedom and a sense of a deeper quest, a deeper purpose in life, like the deeper questions: who am I? Why are we here? What are we doing? What is our deeper philosophy or even beliefs? What do we believe, especially spiritually? So there's this heightened awareness and illumination in the world in a time of shifting in regards to a sense of freedom. What does freedom mean? What does freedom look like? Now, the extremely intense part about this specific eclipse that we just had, and we're still in the energy of, is that it was exactly square the planet Mars. Okay? So that, in normal human talk, means is in a very tense, stressful aspect to the planet Mars, the god of war, the god of action, and a protector god, right? So, with that kind of energy, there has to be some action that's taking place. That friction that is created by the relationship, it's a 90-degree aspect, right? So, yes, Alexandra, I have to explain things to keep it straight in my own head. Um, so if we got the full circle, 360 degrees, right? And you got the sun here, the moon here, that's the full moon. They're on opposite sides. Then what we have right now is right here, the planet Mars, okay? It's created what is called in astrology a T square. Oh my gosh, here we go, like this, right? A T square. So one of the things that we talk about with T squares is the focal point of the energy is expressed through what is in the T square, and that's Mars. So that's why if you saw what I posted about yesterday, there is so much Martian energy taking place right now, right? And Mars, specifically Mars in Pisces, Mars is a warrior, but Mars is also a protector, right? Mars is not only just about killing in war, Mars is also about protecting. So, and taking action and asserting yourself. Now, it's very interesting because Mars in the sign of Pisces is literally, if there was anything in astrology that would represent a martyr, it would be Mars in Pisces. Well, in the word martyr is Mars, right? And Pisces is the sign of a martyr. Not that all Pisces people are martyrs, okay? But that is taking action, doing something potentially violent, for a cause, for something that you so completely, deeply, and spiritually believe. And so, one of the things that I'm seeing right now that I feel the energy of this eclipse is impelling us to do is take some kind of compassionate action. That's Mars and Pisces. It's time to act. That's what this eclipse right now is telling us to do, is asking us, is act. And if we don't act, there will be more violence. Right? And yeah, exactly, Laney. George Floyd is the martyr. He has manifested in this way in the collective as a representation of a martyr, and he will be forever remembered in history as such. And the words "I can't breathe" are written in stone now. They are written. They're engraved into history now. And George Floyd is a representation of that. And this eclipse is like simply a representation of that. And just so you know, we feel the energy of the eclipse before it happens. So that's why it's not like boom, suddenly something started yesterday. You can feel it like the undertow of the wave. Many people say weeks before, but we felt this energy building up, culminating to right now. And especially with eclipses, they tend to make these points sensitive in our charts, sensitive in the sky, for 6 months a year, lunar eclipses. So, one thing that you can really, if you want to apply it to yourself personally, look and see what house you have Sagittarius in. And that is going to be the area of your life that is really, really strongly impacted, and there's going to be some great illumination or emotional pull to do something in this area of your life over this year, of this next 6 months. If you don't know how to do that, that's a different conversation. Reach out to me. But there's plenty of things that you can access online, astro.com, Cafe Astrology, that you can find that out. But I highly recommend better is to contact an astrologer who can give you, AKA me. No, I'm just kidding. No, anyone, a local astrologer, anyone that you trust. Why? Because the information that you'll get online, while it is good, it can only be but so personal, and applicable, because it's like cookie cutter. What do you call them? Like codes that plug in for yourself. So, anyways, yes, Leah. Anyways, so 3 days after an eclipse, that would be today, tomorrow, and the next day, are really, really significant indicators of what is going to unfold. Right? The day of the eclipse and then the 3 days afterwards, three things to really pay attention to in the world and in your own life. What has died? What has rested? What is coming to a rest? And what rose? These are three things to really contemplate and ask yourself, for yourself and also to see in the collective.
What has rested?
What has rested? Meaning, like, what has really slowed down? Not as necessarily completely gone out of your life, but you're like, oh, I'm going to put this over here for now, or it's slowed down, or even in the collective, like, what is, there's a focus, especially we can see it in the media so much, like, the there's been such a crazy focus on coronavirus. Like, that's the only news that's been happening for the past 2.5, 3 months or whatever. And suddenly now that's like B news, you know, and the election. Yeah, exactly. So, um, anyways, that's an example of things that are resting. It's not, it hasn't gone away, but it's like it's rested. Um, yeah, the other thing that I want to share about this lunar eclipse is Venus. So those of y'all that attended the class that I did, and also in general, you probably have heard that Venus has been retrograde. So Venus is retrograde in the sign of Gemini, which was exactly opposite this lunar eclipse, which is pretty close to the sun, opposite the eclipse. And now Venus is deep in her journey in the underworld, as I said 2 days ago. And Mark Elney wrote about this. But when Venus crosses the sun, she literally goes into the heart of the sun. And that is when, this is the period of time, short period of time during the year where you cannot see Venus, right? She's neither morning star or evening star, right? So that is the journey of the goddess within and going into our own underworld, reflecting deep within our own personal values and on our relationships. And so that being in the mix of the eclipse, the overall, now that I get to speak a little bit about it rather than type it up, it always feels so limiting to have to type things and put it in things like that. You got all these factors going on, so there is this compelling by the T-square pushing us to take some action from a space of empathy, from a space of compassion, from a space of for a cause, that is in alignment with our sense, with our feeling of freedom. That's the moon in Sag. That is also in alignment with our social values, and with our desires for what we want relationships to look like, right, and to be like. So you know, that is just the exact thing that's happening right now. So now, and usually I like take questions, but I feel like if that happens, we might get super derailed because I have a bunch of things I want to share. But does anybody have like a really, really pressing question about that? Because I got a lot more to journey into.
They're coming. We can always ask the questions in the chat if they come up, and
Cool, and I can answer at the end.
yeah. Do we want to go into? We still have plenty of time, but do we want to go into the more intimate groups?
I mean, I have a question prepared. We'll see what happens. Okay, so here we go. All right, so one thing I also want to talk about is this whole Venus retrograde. Now, this is going to be, it's going to get a little bit more technical. So, drink some more cacao and fire on the attentions. So, um, Venus has been retrograde, okay, since May 13th and will be until June 25th. Now, one thing that we look at in astrology to give more information about something is something called ruling planets. For those of y'all that don't know, every sign has a ruling planet. Aries is ruled by Mars. The moon is ruled by, no, the Cancer is ruled by the moon. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, etc., etc. Um, and when you look at a particular phenomena happening in the sky, you can always look to the ruling planet to get more information. Venus has been retrograde in Gemini. The ruling planet of Gemini is Mercury, right? Hermes. So that means throughout the course of this Venus retrograde, whatever is going on with Mercury is going to have a significant impact, a significant pulling, so to speak, on what's unfolding with the Venus retrograde. And again, the Venus retrograde is about really reflecting on our relationships, unfinished business there, journeying into our underworld about what we desire and what our values are. Um, so, Mercury, for the most part, has been in Gemini, which is his home sign. He's like totally cool. He's like, oh yeah, I got this. You know, I can talk clearly. Everything is flowing. Mercury's in Gemini. It's a very comfortable place for Mercury. Well, let me see. I believe it was on this past Thursday. I'm just going to double check real quick that Mercury changed signs. It was on Thursday that Mercury changed signs into Cancer. Okay, Mercury and Gemini go together. You know, that's air. They're both airy. They're both about communication. They're both about the mind. Cancer. Who here is a Cancer? Wave your hand. These are our loving, sensitive, caring, nurturing people. Okay, so oh yes, so but Mercury is all about the mind. Mercury is about communicating. Mercury is about thinking. Mercury is about expressing. Mercury is not all lovey-dovey, ooey gooey. Let's drink, you know, cacao and sit in a snuggie and, you know, talk with our stuffed animals. Okay, that's all that Cancers do, right? And they apparently watch Netflix, but with their children, of course. Just kidding. Um, anyway, or dogs or cats. Anyways, so, but when Mercury goes into Cancer, Mercury's not as comfortable, right? Mercury is a little bit more in kind of unclear waters about their natural function to express themselves because Mercury likes to be very logical and rational and linear. And then when Mercury goes into Cancer, suddenly the focus of the mind and how it's expressed is it's like thinking through your heart, thinking through the emotional body, expressing yourself more through, you know, feelings and sensitivity, which is a lot slower. It's kind of like Mercury feels maybe like he's walking through a swamp. He can't exactly get in the same clarity and fastness that he usually likes. So what I noticed was that was a day when things got crazy as far as protests and riots, and especially that's when things got crazy here in Richmond, Virginia. But I know things had been building up in Minneapolis before then, but especially like when it broke out to all these other cities everywhere, that was the day that Mercury went into Cancer, because this is totally. Oh, Leah said there was a 10,000 people protest on Thursday. Yeah, that was the day that things suddenly shifted because Mercury, which had
This
been
past Thursday or the one before?
this past, not the recent one, but like a week and a half ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Mercury had been pulling on Venus, which is the social impulse, which is the social urge of everybody, suddenly got shifted into way more of an emotional energy. And literally, that's right, Nisa. Literally, Mercury went into it. Cancer is like the mama bear sign. That's the protector aspect of Cancer, is like, I'm going to protect my children. And we all saw when George Floyd, well, maybe you've seen when George Floyd was calling out for his mama. That struck a nerve in such a to the core kind of human way to so many people. And that was totally, once the Mercury went into the sign of Cancer, it was like the world really, really, really felt that and was like, hell no. So that was one big day where things shifted. Okay, when Mercury went into the sign of Cancer, and I'm feeling all the chills too, and about to start crying myself. So, sorry if I do that. But so the collective impulse has taken much more of a, rather than like this is what makes sense and this is the rational thing. It's like, this is, I feel this so deeply in my core that this is what I have to do. This is, the mother within all of us was like triggered, activated, in a way that, and we're in this energy now, Mercury in Cancer, for the next about 3 months. Mercury is actually going to go retrograde at the end of this month in Cancer. So we're going to be in this, in the feels, so to speak, in a profound way for a few months now. So here's the other interesting thing to kind of take it a step further. So what is the ruling planet of Cancer? The moon. Nisa said the moon. She said it first. Even though no one could hear it, I heard it telepathically. Right. So what does that mean? Well, the moon is pulling on Mercury, which is pulling on Venus. And the moon, as we know, changes signs every 2.5 days. So that is one of the big factors as to why probably everybody, and I've been talking to several friends who've been like, right, like, oh yeah, since this past Thursday, a week and a half ago, whatever, it's all been like, this day you feel like this, and then this day you feel like this, and this day you feel like this, and it's like, we're all wavy gravy up and down, like, don't even know how to describe what's happening or what you're feeling. It's all coming up, and sometimes you can't even talk, and sometimes it's like, wow, you feel like, let's go, and sometimes you're scared, and so, that's because the moon has a greater influence on what's happening with the rest of the solar system right now. And it is, this lunar, we're like deep in our emotional body as a collective right now. And the emotional body ebbs and flows like waves. We're flowing, And I like to say that I remember when coronavirus, this whole phenomena, lockdown or whatever, started in quarantine. Quarantine, by the way, I found out the etymology of it literally means a period of 40 days, which I could not believe that when I found that out because it was about the plague and quarantining people on a ship for 40 days before they come inside. Anyways, we were talking about that 40 days and 40 nights in the Venus retrograde lecture. Quarantine literally means 40 days. Literally, 40 in Espanol is 40. So, since
20, 40, the same.
2020, oh my gosh! I did not even put that together. Who? Are you kidding me, Florencia? That's ridiculous. Anyways, that's just blowing my mind. Cool. So, anyways, since the whole quarantine and coronavirus began, everything has been like day to day. Then it kind of got to week. But since these protests have been happening, it has been like half a day to half a day. It's been many times like hour by hour, and I can tell you, living in, I mean, a lot of y'all are in New York, so I can't exactly compare it because New York and LA, or Chicago, is totally different, or Minneapolis right now. But Richmond, Virginia it's popping off right now in a really profound way, but there's been a huge difference in what's going on during the day and what's happening at night. Like you feel like it's two totally different worlds. And so one of the things I see is like it's just what's unfolding is really bringing us into the moment. You can't be but so far ahead because like you know things are happening right now. So anyways, so that's kind of the underlay of what's been happening lately. um does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, cool. So then I want to talk about. There's no way I can't not talk about. Oh my gosh, are you serious? It's 11:43. Would y'all quit it, Florencia? What did you do to time, Florencia? All right. Um. Then let me go over these things quickly. I don't know if there's gonna be. I mean, do you want to focus on breakout groups? I mean, we can do that. Or I can keep.
How do you guys feel?
Keep going. Okay. Yeah, I'll just share the question that I was gonna ask for everybody to contemplate during. Zendila says, "Let's go over." During the breakout groups is what is something that you have learned in this past week and a half or 2 weeks? Because I would just say that now to get on a different kind of soapbox, that through various spiritual teachers, but also my understanding right now, how we change. And I've talked to so many people who, especially my good close friends who are black or are, people of color or minorities. There is such a profound sense of, community happening and beauty happening, but there's also so much pain and so much sense of like hopelessness at times. And I know people here in our circle, we are spiritual warriors in many ways, and we work with Mama Medicina, and so I'll bet we tend to be more of an optimistic bunch and have a different kind of perspective, but that is definitely not the case for everybody. So, there's so much that I've been discussing about what can be done. How do you get somebody that is racist? How do you get somebody that is been racist their whole life and the system to have empathy? How do you do that? It seems like mission impossible. And so, well, what I have understood, and it's not something that can happen overnight, for sure, Nisa. It is extremely difficult, but it absolutely has to be their work. But education and rehabilitation are the two big things that I see that are going to be what can help specifically people that are ignorant, people that are racist, people that don't know. Because I think I saw a post that Bree made the other day about, and then she was talking about yesterday about how like hurt people, and ignorance. if you don't know something, you don't know something. So when somebody grows up their whole life in some kind of white bubble world, thinking that black people aren't people. You guys know, I mean, it is not so long ago that black people in the United States of America weren't considered fully human. It was less than 200 years ago. That is the that is the beast underneath. That is like the thing in the dark that is so hard for so many people to come to grips with. And how can you think that that does not continue have some ripple effect for hundreds of years and generations and so um anyways, yeah,
Well,
Native Americans, absolutely,
thing that comes up for me is like this understanding, like, when we're working in the spiritual world, we don't see the separation. So this aspect of we all lives matter, and I think like this has been touched upon, especially in the last few days. But to understand that there's a moment for everything, right? And right now, it's like the deep understanding that in order to understand that all lives matter, we have to understand where there is the deepest disconnection to this understanding. And it is like the people of color and the indigenous communities that have been the most targeted into this illusion that there's a separation. So I understand where this idea of all life matters comes in, but I think we need to really understand that there's a time for everything. And as we bring light to the fact that Black Lives Matter, right? This is the moment where we're honoring that to then come to the understanding that all lives matter. And the conditioning comes from the system, which I'm so grateful that the communities, the people of color, and the Black communities are really taking this step forward, because this is one of the biggest issues of the system. And it's not so much targeting the people that are racist, but understanding the system that made them racist and brought all this conditioning. And so many of us have an aspect of it that we don't even realize is part of our being. And that's where I feel like the scariest parts come in, that there's this conditioning that we're not even aware that is part of our conditioning.
yes, yeah, the racist police officers killing innocent people is the tip of the stick. It's supported. It's like the capstone of the pyramid. It's supported on this whole systemic structure that you know that literally actually makes money off of having people perceive other people as less than or inferior or whatever. There's a whole financial economic interest to it as well. But um, and also, just to say, in regards to the whole all lives matter thing, I saw this beautiful metaphor yesterday about it that maybe some of y'all have seen it, about a burning house. Yeah, yeah, it just like puts it so clearly, like someone's house is on fire. Oh my god, let's go save your house. And then some girls like, what about my house? It's like, what about your house? Well, my house matters too. Well, is your house on fire? Well, no, but well, that house is on fire, so like we got to go help that. We got to go put that fire out. But my house is like a house too, and like I got to. It's important. Does my house matter? You know, and that's just like the crazy hypocrisy and stupidness of that. So, anyways, and I could get on and talk about a lot of things, but there's a couple other things I really want to finish now in astrological language, because I could easily take us well into the evening. But I know ain't nobody got time for that. So, all right, two things. One is the solar eclipse coming up June 21st. Okay, it is happening at 0 degrees of the sign of Cancer. Okay, and solar eclipses, again, it's a huge reset. These eclipses are turning points for humanity, right? An opportunity for something to be reborn and things to die. And what I will say is because it's at 0 degrees of Cancer. Does anybody know what 0 degrees of Cancer is in terms of holidays? Niece is about to get it. Oh yeah, she can't find unmute. Um, yeah, it's the summer solstice. Yes, exactly. Yes. So these points, the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the equinoxes, these are considered the world axis points, okay, in the zodiac, because they literally, those specific points our make up our wheel, make up our year, and literally orientate us with the seasons. So these are considered the world points. So here's one thing that may also be interesting to folks here. So anytime that yes, Rebecca, it's definitely, this does not happen every year by any means, or many years. Yeah. Um, Anytime you have a significant event, transit, something happening, coming together at one of these world points, or an eclipse, for instance, at a world point, it is like an extra significant, like huge opportunity for something that will be felt in the collective, in all of humanity, most profoundly, right? It is a huge turning point for the world, for humanity. Um, but I'll also say, if you happen to have a planet at a degree like this in your chart, or an angle, like 0 degrees of Cancer, 0 degrees Libra, 0 degrees Capricorn, 0 degrees Aries, that's considered to, you may have some specific connection with something that will affect the world, or that's connected with the world as a whole, or humanity as a whole, in your own life, in your own destiny. Um, that's a whole nother topic, but people always love to talk about themselves and learn about themselves. So you gotta throw that in. That's right, Aaliyah. Okay. All right. So that's coming up. That's a huge, 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 huge turning point. And I will say, like, since really when Mercury went into Cancer this past Thursday and through into the first half of July, we are in this like window. Okay, you can call it a womb, you can call it a like gauntlet. Um, it is like, this is it. We are in it right now, and there is such profound opportunity for change. And if you are not sure what to do, you know, Britt posted, I believe, a wonderful doc to different actions that we can take to be in solidarity with our Black brothers and sisters, and for actions for racial justice. But even in other areas of life, with other causes and forms of oppression, and whatever is really important to you right now, this is an incredibly powerful time that what you do right now makes a huge difference. Even if you think it doesn't, even if it's just saying one thing to somebody, even if it is, you know, one small action, you don't know the kind of ripple effect that will have. So this is an incredible time for you to really get into your empowered self and take action, because it will be incredibly supported right now if you do that. So the final thing that I want to share, and there's like way more that I'm not able to share. We have to do a part one and part two. Is the gathering of planets in Capricorn. For those of y'all that have been reading about astrology, you know that Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto have been gathering together in the sign of Capricorn. This is we've heard about it. This is the huge thing that astrology has been talking about 2020. I could go on for several hours talking about this specifically, but I won't, because we're approaching some kind of time thing. But what I will say is is that this is Pluto is the underworld. Pluto is the alchemical process of breaking something down, it dying, and something new being reborn. Right? It's like when something dies and is decomposed, and then it feeds the minerals and it feeds the worms, and then suddenly that feeds the flowers, and those flowers feed the bees, and those bees, and then suddenly life. It's that whole process, right? Coming together with. I'm sorry, I gotta run through it. with the planet Saturn. Okay, Saturn in Capricorn represents, yes, the phoenix of astrology. Saturn in Capricorn represents structure. It's the bones. Saturn in your body is bones. It is the structure, the bones of our world, of our society. It's the governments. It is the people in power. It is the systems that we rely upon. It's the banks for many ways. And when it comes together with Pluto, it's like all that stuff gets tossed into the cauldron. You know, what is going to come out on the other side? I guarantee you it's not going to be everything that went in. You know, we're experiencing a breakdown in security of structure in our systems. And this has to happen for something new to be reborn. There is always, when a huge transformation happens, there's always an element of chaos. There has to be, in order for things to come back into a reharmonization. Right?
When
So
is this all? When is this taking place?
now,
Is it now?
right in this moment. Yeah, so it's especially this year. There's three big this it's like throughout the entirety of this year, but we'll be feeling it collectively for the next several years, right? Um, I mean, this is like the seed period where it's like happening and things are dying, and but like to see the full manifestation, it's going to take years. But we are in the thick of it right now, and throughout this year. Now, the other thing that I want to say is so in ancient astrology, the modern planets, the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they were not talked about because they weren't discovered. Okay, and that is what people believe. I don't know if that's true or not, but they weren't really used. Okay, so the biggest cycle that could happen was the two planets Jupiter and Saturn. All right, Saturn is the last planet that we can see with the naked eye. Okay, Saturn is the principle of contraction. Jupiter is the principle of expansion, of growth. Right. So them coming together is a 20-year cycle. All right, and so this is something that is really maybe going to put things into perspective. They tend to come together in cycles of about 800 years in a particular element. So for the past 800 years, for the most part, for the overwhelming majority, they've been coming together in earth signs, in Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. Shout out to all the earth people in here. Whoop. Okay. Um, so what is happening is beginning on December 21st of this year, they are coming together at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Okay? Shout out to Aquarians. This is the beginning of the 800-year cycle of this. It's called the Great Conjunction, okay? Of the Great Conjunction happening in air signs. Okay? So we are literally at the end of an 800-year cycle and at the beginning of an 800-year cycle. And I could go into a long kind of thing about historical examples and all this kind of stuff about, how we've seen that manifest, but my understanding, okay, and so just so everybody is clear, Jupiter, a principle of expansion and growth and higher purpose, and Saturn is responsibility and discipline and structure and order. When they come together, it's like these two impulses of growth and contraction, expansion and contraction, that creates such a powerful, that's like how real stuff that lasts really long time is built. It's like this urge to grow and expand, but it's real. There's nothing that's been left out. It's like it's not it wasn't, you weren't overly optimistic about it. It's like it's happening. So we're beginning as a humanity this 800-year cycle of this focus in air signs, and so that I think is we're going to be seeing a bigger shift into, especially with Aquarius, into more things for the collective, rather than for the individual. We live in such a focus on the individual, and you can do this and you can do whatever you want and do this for yourself and all this kind of stuff. Well, as we were talking about yesterday, what if that is, um, if you can do that, but what you don't see is that that's the result of slave labor in Indonesia, you know, or oppressed farmers in the Ivory Coast, or right here in your own country. So this is, I see a time that is beginning. It's the beginning. It's not like suddenly we're gonna just, it happens overnight, but of a greater kind of focus, especially over these next 20 years, of the collective. What is the good for the collective? Maybe I have to sacrifice some things because we've been used to, like, well, I can do anything, and I can drink as many plastic straws from as many plastic straws as I wanted. It just disappears. Plastic just disappears when you get rid of it. Well, that is not true at all. you know so I see this as a time where we're shifting into a greater, like, what is happening for the collective, and that being impactually demonstrated in our world and our collective discussion and the collective conversation. And as it applies to you personally, because I know you're dying to know about yourself, as we all are, uh, is this is a great, what you can think about. And you can think about this, really, the planting the seeds on December 21st. Okay, what is it that you want to focus on building or creating? um, the focus of your life, the focus of your purpose, your mission. What are you creating in your life for the next 20 years? Yes, what do you want your next 20 years to be about? This is the gestation cycle right now to really get clear about that. And by the time we get to December 21st, that's a really profound time. No pressure. That's exactly right. No pressure whatsoever. You got several months to figure it out. And here's the thing, it doesn't have to be a specific manifestation like, I want to build a hospital, you know, or I want to start a taxi company, or, whatever. It can be like, I want to, for the next 20 years, I want to go deeper into, profoundly deeper into compassion, or music, but this is not like, I want to do something and that you can do it in the next year. It's like the next 20 years. This is a long time.
And that feels like a lot of pressure, but it also kind of gives us a relief almost, because we know that, like, there's a process, right? So it doesn't need to happen right away. And we can see this in relationships, right? When we are meeting someone, it's like, oh, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person, so I need to know that this is the right person. But instead of approaching it as like, I have my whole life to spend with this person, so what am I rushing like a month or two for? And it's important to see whatever it is that we're calling in as our mission, to understand that it's a relationship. So it's not something that we're needing to do, but it's like, how do we create the soil for this to actually, for this seed to actually be planted?
Absolutely. And I'll also say, on that same topic, eclipses bring a heightened sense of urgency. So for those of y'all that have been feeling that these past few weeks, you're going to continue to feel that. But they bring this sense of urgency. We have to do something now. So that's another thing. Um, I mean, Flo, I could go on, but I don't.
Yeah, I think that this was definitely enough for us to digest and absorb. And I'm just so grateful. This is just a powerful example of community. You know, it's so beautiful how Nick just stepped in, because this is what we all needed. Really, most of us needed to hear, and understanding what's happening as a collective. So, thank you so much, Nick, for stepping in last minute and just knowing that we needed your role in the space, and for being the leader that you are, and just allowing all of this information to just be celebrated instead of just being told. Just super grateful for you. And then we'll also share your information. Again, most of us already know who you are, but just in case you hadn't met Nick yet, we'll share his information on the Facebook group. And going deeper into this on a personal level, I think would be really awesome. So I hope that you have some time for take privates if that's a thing right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to say that I am happy, happy to share and speak and all that, but I also recognize right now that as a white male, this has been the big problem over the past several thousand years is just dumb white males have been leading us and controlling, society. So one of the things that I've really been focusing on is actually learning how to shut up and listen and learn and allow people that don't feel that same sense of like I can speak and it's like I want to lift up women and people of color and black people and Native Americans and indigenous people and I think it's a time for like white men to kind of like shut up. So I say that at the end of like my long thing, but I just wanted to acknowledge that that change is happening too. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. So with all of this being said, we'll finish. Did you want to share a song?
like I said, let me shut up now.
Okay, so this is the song that's we have shared this song many times before, but this one's what's coming up for me today, and this is a song about the ancient bird that allows us to remember that we are the children of the sun, we are the children of the moon, we are the children of the earth. Pájaro viejo, que cantas, esta tierra te ha visto nacer. Pájaro viejo, que cantas, esta tierra te ha visto nacer. Canta, canta, cántame, cántame, recuérdame. Canta, canta, cántame, cántame, recuérdame que somos todos hijos del sol, que somos todos hijos de Tonantzin, que somos todos hijos de la luna. Pájaro viejo, que cantas, esta tierra te ha visto nacer. Pájaro viejo, que cantas, esta tierra te ha visto nacer. Canta, canta, cántame, cántame, recuérdame.